Thank God Alex Pereira lost his fight against Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313, because if he didn't, he might not be in the UFC right now. And I'll be honest with you, there's still a very real possibility that he does leave the UFC this year or next year. Now guys, I promise I'm not just pulling this out of nowhere. It is reported by Alex Pereira and his team translator on the Ariel Helwani show, where he said that if he would have beat Magomed Ankalaev, his plan was to move to boxing and fight Usyk at heavyweight. Now you, I, Dana White, the UFC, everybody in general, nobody wants Alex Pereira to leave the UFC. Alex is currently the UFC's biggest star. He's knocking everybody out. He's saving cards left and right, doing everything he can for the company, fighting 4 times a year. He's carrying the whole light heavyweight division on his back, and for him to just up and leave the UFC would be a very big problem they'd have to deal with. Now this might be shocking that I'm saying this, but the light heavyweight division would be okay. They have Magomed Ankalaev as the champ, who can be interesting at times. I get he was boring against Alex Pereira, but if we're being honest, Alex Pereira was running away and hiding against the cage, so you can't put that all on Magomed. And there's a bunch of fresh matchups for Magomed. You could have him fight Jamal Hill, Yuri Prohaska, a bunch of other contenders in the light heavyweight division, maybe a Carlos Olberg. And there's going to be a lot of interesting fights that the fans are still going to want to watch. Obviously, it's not going to be the same if we had Pereira. Taking Pereira out of any division is going to make it weaker. Going to make the sport weaker in general, because he is a superstar and he does generate fun knockouts that everybody wants to watch. Any card, you could throw him on the worst card of all time, like a 312, just replace that main event, and it instantly makes that card a must buy and a must watch for any MMA fan. Now one other thing Alex Pereira did mention was going up to heavyweight to fight Jon Jones, but with him losing against Magomed Ankalaev, Dana White and the UFC have said that that fight's not going to happen. And us fans don't want to see that fight happen, because if he can't beat Magomed, there's no way he's going to be able to beat Jon Jones. Jon Jones is going to be way too crafty and be way too good at wrestling, where he's just going to destroy Alex Pereira. And that's just the truth. I'm a big Peloton fan, but that's just the truth. And let's think about this for a second. If Alex Pereira went to boxing, I don't think this would be the best thing for him. Now maybe financially, it would be the best thing. He'd probably get a pretty hefty payday if he went to fight Usyk at heavyweight. But if we're being honest, he would get knocked out by Usyk, and I'm very certain that this would happen. Usyk is just a heavier person in general, and when you combine that with Alex Pereira's fighting style, is he's a great kickboxer. But boxing alone, sure, he has great power, but he's not the best boxer we've ever seen. And it's not even close, honestly. And if you're going to go box a guy who's been boxing his whole life, who is currently the best heavyweight on the planet when it comes to boxing, I'm sorry, but it would take a miracle lucky punch for you to win that fight. You are likely getting beat, and honestly could easily get knocked out. Usyk is way too good to be trying to do that, too. And on top of that, we've seen in Alex Pereira's fights, he fights a lot of times with his hands down. That's just his style. But he does kickbox and stand up with his head down. Now, I don't think that's going to translate well to boxing when you could only use your hands, and you need your hands up here to defend. In no world is having your hands down in a boxing match going to be a good idea. So I don't think boxing goes well for Alex Pereira. So I do think it is the best thing for his career that he did lose to Magomed Ankalaev, because even though he had a horrible performance, worst we've seen him have in the UFC thus far, it was still a relatively close fight. Magomed definitely won, but Alex did win 2 rounds. Some people are arguing 3. I don't necessarily see it. Some people say 1, and that's potential, and there's a case for that. However, you cannot deny that a rematch between Alex Pereira, when he fights the way we know he could fight in Magomed Ankalaev, that Alex couldn't win that. A big thing we were worried about going into that matchup was Magomed Ankalaev's wrestling. However, we saw that he went 0 for 12 on takedowns against Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira stuffed every one of Magomed Ankalaev's takedowns. So if it's going to be a majority stand-up battle and Alex fights applying pressure and moving forward rather than moving backwards the whole fight, there is a very real way that Alex Pereira beats Magomed Ankalaev and becomes UFC champion again, where he'll have matchups like a Olberg and multiple other contenders to fight, maybe a Jailton Almeida, and we could see another Alex Pereira title run, and then maybe, ideally, the heavyweight situation will be sorted out by then. Another video on that coming soon. So if you want consistent, high-quality MMA content on the best up-and-coming channel, subscribe and join this community, because we're trying to build something cool here. But maybe then Alex Pereira gets better at grappling, better in general, and he moves up to heavyweight, and we see a super fight, maybe versus him versus Tom Aspinall. But Only time will tell. It's great that Alex Pereira lost to Magomed Ankalaev because it keeps the division fresh and it keeps Alex Pereira in the UFC, where he's not going to chase a boxing super fight just yet. However, if he goes on a crazy run, there is definitely high potential for him to leave the UFC this year or next year for boxing. And only time will tell when we see how Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev 2 goes. Maybe this summer, maybe this fall. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, like, it helps out the channel a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.